The biggest mistake nice guys make isn't being too kind. It's believing their kindness is the reason they're suffering. It isn't. The truth is much harder to accept, because if being nice was the problem, the solution would be easy. But the real problem isn't kindness. It's what you're using kindness to avoid. And once you see it, you'll never look at yourself the same way again. Think about your life. How many times have you stayed quiet when something bothered you? How many times have you agreed when you wanted to disagree? How many times have you carried the weight for everyone else while pretending it didn't affect you? You called it maturity. You called it patience. You called it being a good man. But what if those weren't the real reasons? What if you've spent years telling yourself a comforting story because the truth was too uncomfortable to face? And that truth begins with a question most men never.
Why do you need people to like you so much? Not appreciate you, like you. Why does someone's disappointment feel so heavy? Why does conflict feel so threatening? Why does saying no sometimes feel worse than saying yes to something you don't want? Most men never investigate those questions. They just keep adapting. They become easier to deal with, easier to control, easier to predict. They become the man who never complains, the man who never asks for much, the man who always understands. And everyone loves him for it, at least on the surface. But beneath that image, something starts happening. You begin losing contact with yourself. Not dramatically.
You stop expressing certain opinions. You stop pursuing certain desires. You stop saying what you really think. Not because you changed, because you've learned which parts of yourself create friction. And you've spent years sanding those parts down. Until eventually, you become acceptable to everyone and unfamiliar to yourself. That should concern you. Because becoming accepted by everyone often means becoming honest with no one, including yourself. And the reason this happens is not what most men think. Most nice guys believe they're sacrificing for other people. They're not. They're negotiating. Every act of people-pleasing is a trade. You give approval. You hope to receive acceptance. You give compliance. You hope to receive affection. You give self-sacrifice. You hope to receive validation. The transaction is usually invisible, but it's there. And that's why the nice guy often becomes resentful. Not because he's generous, because he's expecting an emotional return on investment. He spends years giving what nobody asked for, then feels betrayed when nobody pays him back. Read that again. Loneliness. Not physical loneliness, psychological loneliness. The feeling that nobody truly knows you, because nobody can know a version of you that never fully shows up. Think about it. If you're constantly filtering your thoughts, softening your opinions, hiding your frustrations, avoiding difficult conversations, then who exactly are people building relationships with? You or the edited version? This is why so many nice guys feel invisible. Not because people don't see them, because they've spent years hiding the parts worth seeing. And here's the revelation that changes everything. Nice guys don't fear rejection. They fear certainty. Because certainty would force them to confront something painful. That some relationships only survive because they're performing. That some people only stay because they never challenge anything. That some connections are built on convenience rather than respect. And as long as they keep performing, they never have to find out. That is why they stay agreeable. Not because it's safe. Because uncertainty feels terrifying. But avoiding certainty has consequences.
consequences that eventually become impossible to ignore.
The strongest man in the room is rarely the loudest. He's usually the most honest. Honest about what he wants, honest about what he won't tolerate, honest about what he believes, honest about who he is, even when honesty creates friction, especially when honesty creates friction. Because self-respect is not built by being admired. It's built by telling the truth and surviving the consequences. That's what most people never learn. They think confidence comes first, then honesty. The opposite is true. Confidence is what grows after repeated honesty. Every boundary strengthens it. Every difficult conversation strengthens it. Every authentic decision strengthens it. Little by little, day by day, until something changes. You stop entering rooms looking for approval. You stop measuring your worth through reactions. You stop asking yourself how to be liked and start asking something much more powerful. Does this align with who I am? That's the question that rebuilds men.
Because eventually, you realize this isn't about becoming better. It's about becoming real. And becoming real requires loss. The loss of old habits, the loss of old patterns, the loss of certain relationships, the loss of an identity you've carried for years, an identity that kept you safe, an identity that kept you accepted, an identity that slowly disconnected you from yourself. This is where most men retreat, because letting go of an old identity feels like death. In many ways, it is. But staying the same has a cost too, a much bigger one. And that cost is your future.
Or regret that you spent your life becoming what everyone else needed. The cost of being a nice guy was never rejection. It was self-erasure. The slow disappearance of your voice, your standards, your convictions, your identity. Until one day you wake up and realize you've become a stranger to yourself. Don't let that happen. Stop negotiating your worth. Stop outsourcing your identity. Stop treating honesty like a threat. Because the man you're trying to become isn't waiting for more motivation. He isn't waiting for the perfect opportunity. He isn't waiting for permission. He's waiting for you to stop protecting the version of yourself that was built from fear. Let that version die. And when it does, you won't become colder. You won't become cruel. You won't become selfish. You'll become free. And freedom is what you've been looking for the entire time. If this message hit harder than you expected, subscribe, because every video on this channel is designed to help you kill the habits, beliefs, and identities that are keeping you weak.